Hey guys, I'm Mason, and this is Wrestling in the Dark, the only professional wrestling podcast brought to you by a completely blind wrestling fan. And today, with WWE's SummerSlam round the corner, I'm here with some fantasy booking because I'm bringing you my ideal SummerSlam. Some people are going to be messed off this that could probably do with having a match, but this is a pay-per-view that I'd really like to see, that I'd enjoy watching from top to bottom, so feel free to let me know what you think in the comments section. Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt would kick off the night. I think this one would be a fairly good opening match. You've got SummerSlam opening up. You're like, oh, what's going to be first? And then you get this return/debut of Bray Wyatt as this new Fiend character. I think the crowd would be hot for that, and then you could have some nice, spooky, ominous, special SummerSlam level entrance for Bray, and then Finn has to come out to that, and then you can set the stage that whatever Bray did in his entrance has unsettled Finn so much that he's not on his game properly, that Bray's already in his head before the pay-per-view's even started, and I think that would be a pretty cool dynamic for the match. Obviously, in the end, Bray would go over because the Fiend needs to win his first match, and with Finn asking for some time off, it'd be a decent way of writing him off TV. Get him out of the way for a while, you set Bray off to a nice path, you start off the show with a high-intensity, hard-hitting match, and I just think that it'd be a really, really cool way to open SummerSlam. You've got to have Finn get brutalised in this match, though, because if you're going to have him get written off TV, then you really got to make it look convincing and make Bray look really good with it. Finn's got to get taken off in a stretcher, and while he's getting wheeled away backstage, just show AJ and the club, and that way you can foreshadow the fact that he's going to join them when he comes back, because that's what else I'd do when he returned. So Finn versus Bray would open up the show. Like I said, we're fairly likely to get this match anyway, but I think it's going to be a good match. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I think it'd be a really, really cool way to open up the show and introduce a story into the match from the get-go. The Raw Tag Team Championships would be on the line, with the Revival going against the Club. I just want to see the Club get a little bit more of a push, to be honest. We've got AJ Styles as the United States Champion. We have these two backing him up. They're now in a proper faction. Apparently the WWE has filed for some trademarks for some new characters, one of them being the OC, which some people are speculating could be the original Club, which would be pretty cool if they're going to go full bore with having the three of them as a proper faction under a proper name. Then you need to do sort of the same thing as you've done with the New Day and Kofi. Give all three of them some championship gold, and as much as it might lead to the Revival not getting used quite as much as they have been on TV recently, or going back down to what they were before they were champions, you can't have them keep it forever. You just have to have this be a really competitive, hard-fought match. Maybe even have the Revival as the faces in this situation, because I think they want to go forward with the Club as heels. So in the end, really, you could have Gallows and Anderson pull off a dastardly win, a thumb to the eye, handful of tights, any of that sort of good heel business. But I definitely want to see Gallows and Anderson go over and just have that tag team gold while AJ's carrying the United States Championship. I think that'd also make the US Championship feel a lot more important if you've got it in a faction with those three, and Gallows and Anderson have got the tag championships at that point. So I think it'd just elevate all of them and elevate the belts, and then that way the tag team championships, or at least the Raw ones, are involved in whatever feud AJ gets in then, and it just gets it a little bit more exposure. And I just think that I'd like to see Gallows and Anderson go over. And like I said, I know that it might not be the best decision for the Revival, but oh well. that's all I've got to say. I'm not huge on the Revival anyway. It's not like I'm not a fan of them, but I'm not like a massive fan, and compared to how much I'd mark out for the faction of the club all having that would be the far more exciting option. But I do think that this would be a really, really cool match, and I think that it'd have some proper good wrestling in it, and hopefully we get to see some cool tag team maneuvers from Gallows and Anderson, because who doesn't like their tag team wrestling? So yeah, Gallows and Anderson versus the Revival for the Raw Tag Team Championships. Next up, Drew McIntyre comes out. He hits the ring, mic in hand, and he lays down an open challenge because, in his own words, he's sick of screwing around. I'd like to see Drew McIntyre get a little bit tougher, a little bit rough around the edges again. I'd like to see him with that attitude that he had in NXT, just embrace that. If you want to fight me, come down, look me in the eye and tell me you want a fight. And then this open challenge would be answered by the former Hansen. I have no idea whether he's Eric or Ivar, but either way, I'm going to call him Hansen because that's the name that I can remember of the Viking experience. I think that this one could be a really, really cool match. You've got two fairly big guys, both really athletic. You can have a nice, hard-hitting match, back and forth, and then in the end, when Drew picks up the win, it doesn't make Hansen look bad because he is not a singles competitor, which the commentary could play up. And I'd really like to see what these two could do together, with Hansen pulling off those back handspring elbows, etc., and being too fast in a way for Drew, because that way you don't have to have Drew put against a smaller quote-unquote guy that's a bit faster than him. You can have Hansen, who is, I assume, a fairly big guy. I don't know how big he is in comparison to Drew McIntyre. Obviously, I've got no visual reference, but with the way that the presented, I assume Hansen is a fairly big dude, so it'd be pretty cool to see him sort of running circles round Drew for a bit until he gets hit with that claymore and beaten up a little bit by Drew, and then Drew can pick up the win, makes him look nice and strong. He gets a good pay-per-view win, and like I said, Hansen doesn't necessarily look too bad there because he didn't have Ivar or Eric or whichever one Rowe is. God damn, the name change still messing me up after all of this time. And but yeah, I really, really think that this one could be really cool. I'd like to see some sort of reversal from Hansen when Drew gets him up in that reverse Alabama slam, and some sort of roll through with it into another crazy move that Hansen could do. I think this one would probably end up being one of my favourite ones of the night, because I just always like these sorts of matches. So yeah, Drew McIntyre versus Hansen, who is either Eric or Ivar of the Viking experience. Becky Lynch versus Shayna Baszler, the still reigning and defending NXT Women's Champion, which will be for the Raw Women's Championship. I think this one could be a really, really cool match. Now, obviously, I don't know the status of Shayna Baszler. Come SummerSlam, she might have lost the championship because there's another takeover between now and then, and I don't know who she's facing, so she could easily lose it, in which case this could still work just as a feud without the NXT Women's Championship involved. But with the Street Profits coming up and them still being the NXT Tag Team Champions, I think that you've left the door open for this sort of thing to happen, and I'd really like to see Shayna just not drop that belt, come up to the main roster, give NXT a little bit of exposure, feud with Becky, them two can go back and forth on Twitter, and Shayna can try and intimidate Becky, and Becky won't back down and isn't getting intimidated despite Shayna's two dopey goons, or whatever she'd refer to Shafir and Duke as. But I just think that this could be a really, really cool match, and Becky's title reign has got to come to an end at some point. She could easily go back after the SmackDown Live Women's Championship at some point, or just get involved with something else, I don't know, go back after Baron Corbin for giving her the end of days. I know that they're not going to do intergender, but they're not going to do Becky versus Shayna either, so they're both equally as likely, probably. And I definitely think that I'd let Shayna go over with this one too, because I'd think that it'd just make her look so dominant and dangerous. The fact that she's never dropped that NXT Women's Championship until she either has to vacate it or loses it at another takeover because of how much pressure she's facing between defending both belts. But seeing someone as the Raw Women's and the NXT Women's Championship champion, I think could be really cool. And I just think that Becky versus Shayna with the arm submissions and all that sort of stuff in ring, I think you could tell a really cool story, and it'd be really cool to see Shayna do the but just know that Shayna's done that arm stomp thing to Becky and all the nice storytelling that they could do in that match. I just think that it'd be a real good match, and probably a show stealer if they did it right. And yeah, so let me know what you think of that one. Shayna Baszler, the NXT Women's Champion, versus Becky Lynch, the Raw Women's Champion, for the Raw Women's Championship. The Intercontinental Championship match would be a fatal four-way. Cesaro versus Aleister Black versus Sami Zayn versus Nakamura. This one would just be full of chops, full of strikes. It'd be so audible, you'd be able to tell what was going on the whole match just from the noises of the crowd reacting to the chops and the chop noises and strike noises everywhere. I just think that this one would be absolutely fantastic. I really liked Cesaro versus Aleister Black. I really liked Sami Zayn versus Nakamura, which is probably one of my favourite matches ever, and was probably one of the last matches I watched when I could see a little bit. And I just think that this would be a crazy, brutal spot fest of a match that I would love to see, and I think that you could get a really cool finish out of it. So imagine they've been going out for a while, people have been getting uppercutted and kicked out of the air and springboard drop kicks and tornado DDTs and all that good business, and then at the end Cesaro eats a blue thunder bomb, then he eats a haluva kick. Sammy's going for the second haluva kick, gets black masked by Aleister. Aleister gets Kinshasa'd by Nakamura, and then Nakamura pins Sammy anyway because Aleister rolls out of the ring or something like that. I just think that that would be really cool. Then you could transition into Nakamura versus Aleister Black as a proper feud, one-on-one, which I think could be a really cool feud, and keeps Aleister in the Intercontinental Championship scene because Nakamura stole his win, and I just think that that would be really cool. It'd be a really nice initial match, and then the feud coming out of it would be really cool. So yeah, that's that one was one of the ones that I got really excited about when I thought of it. Like, yeah, I'd love to see that match. So yeah, fatal four-way action: Cesaro, Nakamura, Sami Zayn, Aleister Black. The SmackDown Live Women's Championship, Bayley versus Nikki Cross. Now, the Nikki Cross Alexa Bliss turn is going to come at some point. They are not going to stay friends for the foreseeable future, and when it happens, it'd be pretty cool if Bayley came across and she was trying to comfort Nikki, trying to empathise with her a little bit, show her a little bit of sympathy, and basically ends up looking like she's saying "I told you so," and then Nikki can snap on her. Bayley and Nikki can feud over the next few weeks, and then you have a no DQ match between Nikki and Bayley, with Nikki picking up the win. I think that this one would be a really cool one. I'd like to see Nikki get a little bit more of a chance. I've loved the stuff that she's been doing with Bliss. I really loved it. I think the character work has been absolutely phenomenal, and I know that Bayley has needed this title and, would maybe benefit from a longer run. And I think that you could definitely go the other way with it. Bayley could still definitely win, but you'd have to make Nikki look really good. Whereas if Nikki won this, I don't think it'd harm Bayley too much. It'd be pretty cool if she went and helped Becky out with her problems with Shayna Baszler going forward after this pay-per-view. Obviously, if head towards Survivor Series, have Becky, Charlotte and Bayley all teaming up against the three horsewomen with Shayna. I think that would be a pretty cool match. So Nikki could go forward as SmackDown Women's Champion and show some more of what she can do, because she's been phenomenal on the mic, and I think that it'd be really cool to see her get a bit more of a push, hold that championship for a bit, have a couple of really good feuds. And I don't think you necessarily have to end it between her and Bayley after this, especially with it being a no DQ match. I think you can find a way to carry it on, but I definitely think that I'd want to see Nikki do what Alexa couldn't, because that'd be pretty cool, seeing Nikki rubbing it in Alexa's face like, oh, well, you couldn't pick it up, but I did. I beat Bayley. And yeah, and I think that'd be a really cool way to go with it. So Nikki Cross would pick up the SmackDown Live Women's Championship. Seth Rollins versus Ricochet next. Now this one happens purely off the basis of I would love to see this match, and it doesn't have to have much more build than that in my opinion. Just have them both be like, I'm better than you. Just do what Rollins was doing with Ospreay, but with Ricochet, and not over Twitter. I just think that this match would be really, really cool, and it's a shame that it wouldn't have more stakes, but I think you could make it have more stakes, especially if you had some sort of weird finish. I wouldn't want to, obviously I wouldn't want it to be screwy, because I wouldn't want either of them to have to turn heel, but some sort of finish that makes them have to either team up afterwards or have some sort of best of 7. Either way, I think that Seth versus Ricochet could be really, really spectacular. I think that it would be really, really fast, and it'd make Seth just look really good, because he'd have to pull out all the stops against someone like Ricochet, and it'd also make Ricochet look good, because he'd be going up against someone who not long ago was the Universal Champion, that has had those really good performances in the past in gauntlet matches, etc, etc. So if Ricochet was giving Rollins trouble, then it would make Ricochet look a lot more dangerous. It'd make him look a lot more like people are going to have to work hard to beat him, and I just think that it'd make both men look really good, as well as being a really, really cool match. I probably wouldn't even be able to keep up with it, which is funny, because I'm booking this, it's my ideal one, but I don't even think that commentary would do this one justice. There'd be so many, oh, and from the top rope he goes flying. So I don't know why I'm saying it, but I just think that it would be really cool. Just, it's about ego and one-upsmanship. Really cool to see. The SmackDown Live Tag Team Championships. Big E and Xavier Woods of the New Day taking on the Street Profits. Now, obviously, unfortunately for Street Profits, the New Day would come out of this one victorious. They're probably going to have a little bit of a longer reign again this time, or at least I think until Kofi drops the championship. And I think that even though Street Profits would be losing their first main roster pay-per-view match, losing against 6-time and longest reigning tag team champions does not make you look bad. If the Street Profits put up a good fight in this, you could have a really fun, competitive match that would make Big E and Xavier have to work a little bit harder than they thought they were going to have to, and maybe not take Street Profits as seriously as they should have. You could even have them be quite friendly with each other. Go the route that they're almost so friendly that they're not taking them as seriously as they should, and that way it can look like the Street Profits are going to pick up that win. And there can be multiple times where it looks like that, but in the end Big E would probably get the win for the team, or at least a tag team maneuver or something like that, probably the midnight hour. But I like I said, I know that the Street Profits would have to take the loss here, but I think that if they put up a really good fight against the New Day, then they would look really, really good, because like I say, New Day are one of the most successful tag team champions ever. They're one of the most iconic tag teams, full stop, these days. 6-time tag team champions, longest reigning tag team champions. You get a good fight out of them, and it'd just elevate the Street Profits a hell of a lot. And I'd really like to see the promos that they could cut on each other as well. I think that'd be a really fun rivalry. Oh, here comes the fun one. It's the WWE title match. It's Kofi Kingston, the WWE champion, taking on Roman Reigns. This one would be hilarious because everyone would be so convinced that Roman was going to win. Everyone would be like, no, I can't believe this. All the effort that they put into pushing Kofi, and Roman doesn't need to be in the title picture, and everyone would be so mad, and it'd be great. And then in the end, when Kofi ended up picking up that win, it would make Kofi look fantastic. The amount of top stars that he's faced as champion and beaten: AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens. I know Sami Zayn isn't a top name, but that's still a really good name to have beaten. And in the end, I think him beating Roman would make him look really, really good. And it'd also make both men more over, in my opinion, because you'd have this relief factor of like, oh, you mean Kofi's just beaten Roman? They're not just going to sling the title back on him. And you can also go from there and tell this story of Roman. No, I don't think you go down the he can't win the big one route, but maybe just, not as confident as he used to, or just something. I don't know. I just think that you show that he's not just going to get pushed down our throats and not just going to get the championship slung back on him and be against Brock and like everyone's sort of afraid. And I just think that this one would have such good drama. Roman would be getting booed like hell again, but I think that would also be the intention, so that'd be fine. When Kofi hit a big move, and he hit like the SOS or hit the trust fall on him, or any of those types of things, can you imagine how much the crowd would pop? They would go bananas. And then when he eventually hit that Trouble in Paradise and had to crawl into the cover, oh man, it'd be so dramatic. And I just think it'd work really, really well in cementing Kofi's reign as being a really top reign, a fighting champion, and it would raise Kofi's power levels so much of being able to defeat the big dog, defeat Roman Reigns, so I just think that one would be really, really cool, just for the drama of the match, the lead up to it with everyone getting mad, and the eventual relief and the huge feel good moment. I think it'd be really, really cool. In the main event, we'd have the Universal Championship defence, and as much as I don't want to book a Brock Lesnar match, we have Brock Lesnar as the Universal Champion, so I guess I'm sort of stuck with that one. But this is my ideal pay-per-view, so we'll have Brock lose the belt in two things that they've liked doing recently in WWE. It'd be winner takes all, 2 out of 3 falls, AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar, United States Champion versus Universal Champion. I think it'd be a killer match. We've already seen Brock versus AJ once. AJ put in a really good performance. Heyman himself has put over how dangerous of a competitor AJ is and what a threat to Brock he can be. Now, with the club behind him, I think it'd be a pretty interesting match, really, with Gallows and Anderson out there at ringside to egg on Styles, encourage him, make sure that Heyman's not distracting him. The 2 out of 3 falls thing would make it an interesting, dramatic match that we could then make AJ look really good from. Brock could come out strong, pick up that first win with some F5s, etc, etc. Then AJ could even up the score with a calf crusher, and at the end of the match, after avoiding Lesnar, he could get him in the Styles Clash or hit him with a couple of phenomenal forearms. I'm not sure what the sort of weight limit for a Styles Clash is, whether AJ could even get someone as big as Brock into the Styles Clash, but I'd be interested to see anyway. But I think it'd be a fairly interesting story. You've got the club out there, and I wouldn't actually want them to get involved, or not for the most part. Maybe at one point, like, Gallows goes to get involved, goes to get up on the apron, and AJ sort of holds a hand up like, no, I'm doing this on my own. So when he beats Brock and he becomes Universal Champion, it looks legit. And then you've got Universal and United States Champion AJ Styles with the club as the tag team champions, and that faction can just get mega over then. And I think it'd be really, really interesting. In the long run, I'd probably transition into a feud with the New Day. Universal versus WWE Champion. Maybe Survivor Series, I think that could be really, really cool. So I think that the AJ Brock match would be really, really interesting. And I'd definitely like to see the Calf Crusher pick up one of the falls in that 2 out of 3 falls match, because it'd be really interesting to see someone make Brock tap. So actually, I think I'd prefer the Phenomenal Forearm or the Styles Clash to get that first win, and then him pick up the actual title with the Calf Crusher, because I think it'd be such an iconic image of someone making Brock tap. It'd make AJ look so vicious and dangerous, and really put him over as Universal Champ. So the club, as that faction, could just have some real steam behind them after this pay-per-view. So yeah, Brock Lesnar, AJ Styles, winner takes all 2 out of 3 falls match, with AJ coming out with that Universal and United States Championship. So that was my ideal SummerSlam. Let me know what you thought of these matches. Which one do you think would be match of the night? Which one do you think that you'd look forward to watching the most? Which one do you think would be the worst one? At some point, I will bring you my worst SummerSlam, because I think that would be a lot of fun too. Really interested to hear what you guys think. So if you want to catch that video and any other videos that I do in the future, hit that subscribe button and the notify bell, and don't leave yourself out in the cold. Right guys, I'm off, and you should have a good one.